2 years after questioning whether Bronny James belonged in the NBA, Jaylen Brown is finally addressing the controversy again. With Brown and LeBron James now set to become teammates in Philadelphia, he's speaking out on how they'll move forward after everything that happened. Let me break it down. Summer League 2024, Las Vegas. The Thomas and Mack Center is packed, cameras everywhere, and a rookie named Bronny James is getting his first real look under an NBA microscope. He's the number 55 pick, LeBron's son, and every eye in that building is on him, including Jaylen Brown's. Brown wasn't playing. He was courtside, sitting next to his girlfriend Kaisre Gondrezick and Chicago Sky rookie Angel Reese, watching the Lakers take on the Celtics summer squad. And in a clip that Brown was seated courtside at Thomas and Mack Center in Las Vegas for the Celtics summer league game against the Lakers with his girlfriend, Kaisre Gondrezick, and Chicago Sky rookie Angel Reese. Lip readers caught him leaning in toward Reese and delivering a blunt take. According to that resurfaced footage, Jaylen Brown once said he did not think Bronny was a pro. It wasn't a press conference. It wasn't a tweet. It was a private aside between friends at a game, except it didn't stay private. Someone had a camera pointed in his direction, and within hours, the clip was everywhere. As one outlet later put it, the exchange wasn't meant to be captured and broadcast on social media for millions to see. Bronny at the time was 19 years old and getting battered by expectations nobody his age should have to carry. He'd gone 1 for 5 from the field that very game, finishing with 2 points, 3 rebounds, 1 assist and 2 turnovers in 25 minutes as the Lakers fell to Boston. Across 4 summer league outings split between Vegas and the California Classic, he'd shot an ice-cold 0 for 15 from three-point range. This was a kid still finding his legs, and now a finals MVP was on camera questioning whether he even belonged. Reese was sitting right there when it happened. Gondrezick was right there too. Neither of them shut it down. The clip shows Brown just talking, unfiltered, the way people talk when they think no one else is listening. That's the moment that would follow him for 2 years. Brown didn't let it sit for long though. Hours after the clip took off, he went to social media himself and addressed it directly, writing that he actually looked forward to watching Bronny grow, framing it as a family reflecting greatness. In his own words posted that night, Brown said, "It's a flex to have your son alongside you in the NBA. It reflects greatness and longevity. Bronny has all the tools around him to be successful. I look forward to watching his growth." That was Brown's version of clearing the air back in 2024. Quick, public, and seemingly sincere. But here's the thing about comments like that. They don't just vanish because you apologize. They wait. And 2 years later, with LeBron and Brown suddenly sharing a jersey, that clip found its way back into every timeline, every group chat, every NBA debate show in the country. Because while Brown had moved on, Bronny hadn't been sitting still either. He'd been quietly building. In the time between that summer league night and this new chapter, Bronny had turned himself into a real professional. Lakers head coach J.J. Redick had been blunt about what the plan was for him early on, describing him plainly as a project. In Redick's own words at the time, he's a development player. That's how we're looking at Bronny. Redick even laid out the roadmap in real time, saying he's certainly going to spend time with the Lakers. He will spend time as well in the G League. As we sort of build out our player development program, he's going to be an important part of that. That development path actually worked. By the time this new chapter with Brown rolled around, Bronny wasn't the kid shooting 0 for 15 from deep anymore. He'd become, by some accounts, too good for the level he'd started at. Bronny averaged 2.9 points on 38.6% from 3 last season, but proved too good for the G League after averaging 15.6 points, 3.1 rebounds, and 3.6 assists while losing just 3 games in 14 appearances. So when Brown's old comment resurfaced, it wasn't just an awkward throwback. It landed against the backdrop of a young player who had actually answered the doubt with results. And that's exactly why the internet reacted the way it did. Because the timing of it all, the resume Bronny had built since, made the old clip feel like unfinished business rather than ancient history. None of this happened in a vacuum either. The reason this clip got dragged back into daylight wasn't random nostalgia. It was a trade. Boston had shipped Jaylen Brown to Philadelphia, and suddenly the basketball world had a reason to go dig through the archives. The moment the transaction became real, accounts across social media started recirculating the footage with captions pointing out the obvious irony, that the two would now be under the same roof. One widely shared repost captioned the clip by noting that Brown once said he did not think Bronny was a pro, adding the punchline that now the two will share a locker room. That's the setup. A comment made in 2024, an apology issued within hours, 2 years of Bronny quietly proving himself. And then a trade that put Brown in the same building as the kid he doubted and the father who never forgot it. What happened next, once the cameras caught up to LeBron himself, is where the real tension started to show. Word travels fast in the NBA, and there was no chance a comment about LeBron James's son stayed contained to a summer league sideline. It got back to him, and when it did, LeBron wasn't exactly thrilled about it. The comments clearly made their way back to LeBron, who was of course not appreciative of Brown's analysis of his son. But LeBron didn't blow up publicly right away. He sat with it. He let time pass. And then, months later, a reporter handed him the perfect opening to say exactly what he thought in front of cameras. No filter, no spin. It happened after a Lakers-Celtics matchup in February, a game Boston had just won. LeBron was in the locker room, still in his gear, getting peppered with questions when a reporter asked him directly about his relationship with Brown. LeBron didn't dodge it. He didn't pretend the comment never happened. He brought it up himself, unprompted in tone, even if prompted in question. He started by giving Brown his flowers on the court, saying they're playing great basketball, and it's because of him and the rest of those guys. He's taking that next step. Then came the turn. LeBron shifted from praise to the real answer, telling the room that our relationship has been pretty respectful. You know, besides the expletive he said about Bronny at Summer League. It was a gut punch line delivered with a smile, but the message was unmistakable. LeBron remembered. He'd remembered for months, and he wasn't going to let a question about respect pass without bringing up the one thing that had actually tested that respect. The reporter, sensing there was more to pull, followed up and asked whether the relationship had recovered since that clip went viral. LeBron's answer was almost rhythmic in how many times he repeated the reassurance, saying, "We'll be all right. We'll be all right. Yeah, we'll be all right." It was the kind of answer that sounds fine on the surface, but reveals just how many times LeBron had clearly replayed that clip in his head. He didn't stop there either. LeBron actually acknowledged that Brown had tried to smooth things over publicly, saying, "I think he went on social media and said something about it." That's a direct nod to Brown's same-day apology post from 2024, proof that LeBron had seen it, registered it, and filed it away rather than dismissing it. Then came the line that captured LeBron's actual feelings toward his son's development, wrapped inside a small jab that Bronny still had work to do. He put it simply, "It's all good, but Bronny got a long way to go, but that's another story." And then, almost as an aside about Brown himself, he added a shorter, almost affectionate dig, calling him out by initials and saying, "But the kid, I mean listen, JB is doing his expletive." Reporters in the room noticed something else too. LeBron wasn't scowling through any of this. He was smiling the entire time he brought up Brown's comment, which told people watching the clip back that whatever irritation existed, it wasn't boiling anger. It was the kind of needle a father throws when he hasn't forgotten, but also hasn't let it fester into real animosity. This wasn't the only time LeBron circled back to Brown either. Later in that same season, LeBron was asked more broadly about Brown as a player, completely separate from the Bronny situation, and this time he had nothing but respect to offer. He pointed out that Brown was putting up an MVP caliber season without getting the credit, saying this whole MVP thing, "I don't understand why his name is not getting talked about some as well. Like, nobody gave them a shot to start the season, and he's averaging what, 30? Just under 30? That's the fuller picture of how LeBron actually felt about Jaylen Brown heading into all of this. Genuine respect for the game Brown was playing, layered with a father's memory of the one thing Brown said that he couldn't fully let go of. Both things were true at the same time, and LeBron never pretended otherwise. What makes this whole stretch so interesting is the timing. LeBron dropped that besides the expletive he said about Bronny line in February, at a point where there was zero indication the two men would ever share a team. Brown was a Celtic, LeBron was a Laker. There was no reason to think their paths would cross beyond a couple of regular season games a year. LeBron was simply answering a locker room question honestly, with no idea that within a matter of months, his answer would be replayed constantly as backdrop to an actual reunion. And that's exactly what makes the next chapter so loaded. Because everything changes the moment Jaylen Brown's name gets attached to a trade that lands him in the same city LeBron is about to call home. Before any of this could turn into a real storyline, Jaylen Brown had to actually become available. And that part of the story starts with Boston. The Celtics made a move that stunned a lot of people around the league, sending their all-star forward out of the city that had drafted him. The deal came together at the start of July, When the Sixers made a splash on July 6 when they traded away Paul George for Brown, sending 2 first-round and 2 second-round draft picks to the Boston Celtics to finalize the trade. Brown didn't hide his emotions about leaving the only franchise he'd ever known. He put out a public message thanking the Celtics. And around that same window, he also posted a phrase that would end up meaning a whole lot more later. Throw the ball up. At the time, it was just his personal way of hyping himself up for a new chapter in Philadelphia. Nobody knew yet that phrase would become the punchline to the entire Bronny saga. Once Brown was officially a Sixer, the conversation immediately shifted to free agency because LeBron James was still unattached, still deciding on his 24th season, and Philadelphia had suddenly built a roster that looked like exactly the kind of contender he'd want to join. Word started circulating that Philly was making a real push, and insiders close to the situation began asking the obvious question. Would Brown's old comment about Bronny be something LeBron actually held against the organization pursuing him? That question got a real answer fairly quickly. According to reporting from Jason Dumas of Action News on 6ABC, James has moved past the controversy and would have no issue sharing the court with Brown if the two were to become teammates this offseason. That was a significant signal, a direct line from someone tracking LeBron's camp, saying the years-old clip wasn't going to be the reason a superstar walked away from a contender. Brown, for his part, wasn't sitting quietly during this stretch either. He was actively pulling for LeBron to pick Philadelphia. Reports made clear that Brown had been mostly active throughout LeBron James's free agency search, urging James to join the Philadelphia 76ers on a stream with iShow speed. And reports claimed the former Celtic was also trying to recruit the 4-time champ. He wasn't just hoping from a distance, he was in the group chats, on the streams, doing everything a new franchise player could do to land the biggest name still on the board. And he wasn't doing it alone. Tyrese Maxey and Joel Embiid were reportedly in on the recruiting push too, staying in regular contact with James as Philadelphia made its pitch throughout the process. This wasn't one player lobbying quietly. It was the entire core of a franchise working together to convince the league's biggest name to sign on. For weeks, LeBron kept his cards close, with reports naming Cleveland, Miami, and a handful of others as teams still in the conversation. But eventually the decision came down, and Philadelphia came out on top. LeBron ultimately made Philadelphia over the Cleveland Cavaliers, Miami Heat, and several other teams that remained in the mix until the final stretch of his decision. The moment that news broke, the internet did exactly what you'd expect. It went straight back to the courtside clip. Old posts got dug up again. New captions got slapped on top, and the phrase "awkward" started trending across basketball social media within the hour. One widely circulated post framed it perfectly, pointing out that hours after the announcement, that same old Jaylen Brown clip started circulating again and immediately created awkward vibes. It's worth pausing here on why this particular old clip hit differently than most recycled sports drama. Brown wasn't just some rival talking trash about an opponent. He was now going to be standing next to Bronny's father in every huddle, every practice, every locker room interview for the foreseeable future. And this wasn't happening in a vacuum. Brown had also had his own history of on-court tension with his new co-star Embiid, stemming from a heated playoff series that included pointed exchanges between the two. Some accounts even noted that those comments came during a heated playoff series that featured on-court exchanges between Brown and Embiid, and they starred in a heated exchange and later fallout when Jason Williams called out Brown over the flopper remarks. So Philadelphia wasn't just bringing together 3 stars with championship talent. It was bringing together 3 stars with actual history. Brown's Bronny comment, Brown's Embiid friction, and LeBron's very public memory of both. As one report summed it up, now the 3 stars, LeBron James, Jaylen Brown, and Joel Embiid, are expected to form the core of the new-look Sixers alongside Tyrese Maxey. And the combination of Brown's past Bronny comments and his Embiid criticism has some wondering how quickly the group will gel. That's the tension sitting underneath the surface as this new-look roster came together. Talent stacked on talent, but also old wounds stacked on old wounds. And it all led directly to the moment everyone had actually been waiting for. The moment Brown himself would have to say something publicly, with LeBron officially in the building. Once LeBron's decision became official, all eyes turned to Jaylen Brown. Would he address it? Would he ignore it and hope the story died down? Would there be some kind of formal statement clearing the air? What actually happened was simpler than anyone expected, and somehow louder because of it. Shortly after the news of LeBron's signing broke, Brown went straight to social media and posted 4 words that Philadelphia fans instantly recognized. As one report captured it, shortly after news broke that James had agreed to a 2-year deal with the 76ers, Brown took to X and posted a simple reaction, writing "Staps throw the ball up," a phrase that carries extra meaning in Philadelphia, since it is the same line Brown used when he first learned he had been traded to the Sixers earlier that offseason. That phrase wasn't random. It's a rallying cry among Philly sports fans, a line used to hype up any of the city's teams heading into a big moment. As one outlet explained, the phrase "throw the ball up" is a catchphrase among Philly sports fans to hype their favorite teams, but it has certainly been popularized much more after Brown's post on X. For a lot of fans watching closely, that post was the moment the whole storyline flipped. No apology tour, no lengthy statement addressing Bronny directly. Just excitement, pure and simple, about the roster he was about to be part of. Analysts covering the Sixers pointed to that reaction as proof there was no real tension left to unpack. One breakdown put it directly, noting that Brown's instant LeBron reaction debunks any Bronny James tension, even while acknowledging that lip readers had once caught him being critical of Bronny during that 2024 Summer League game. That same breakdown didn't shy away from admitting the old comment had actually gotten under LeBron's skin at the time, noting plainly that the moment, admittedly, that bothered the 41-year-old forward at the time. But it also made clear that whatever irritation existed had faded by the time free agency rolled around, pointing out that reports had suggested LeBron and Brown's past issues would not affect James's mindset during free agency, and the Sixers had a shot just like the other finalists. The conclusion most people around the situation landed on was the same one. Clearly, the hatchet is buried. LeBron has moved past the Bronny comment, and now he gets to take the floor with a teammate he's actually praised as one of the most underrated players in the league this past season. Brown's excitement wasn't just performative online energy either. Throughout the recruiting stretch, he'd been genuinely invested in making this work, and that energy carried directly into his reaction once it became official. Reports described it as Brown's excitement lines up with the recruiting effort he was part of throughout the process. This wasn't a guy quietly enduring a situation. He'd actively pushed for it, and now he was celebrating it. There's also a wrinkle worth mentioning here that adds another layer to Bronny's own position in all of this. Because Brown had been so blunt about Bronny's readiness back in 2024, some analysts speculated that his past comments might actually shape how the front office approached Bronny going forward, floating the idea that Brown's opinions on Bronny might ensure that the 76ers don't try to swing a trade for LeBron's son, especially with the Lakers having already developed him into a legitimate rotational contributor over 2 seasons. That's a subtle but real consequence of the whole saga. It's not just about whether Brown and LeBron get along in the locker room. It's about whether Bronny himself ever ends up playing alongside his father in Philadelphia, or whether he stays in Los Angeles building his own separate legacy away from any lingering awkwardness with Brown. For now, all signs point to Bronny remaining a Laker, continuing the development path Redick had mapped out for him from the very beginning. Meanwhile, the excitement in Philadelphia kept building, with LeBron officially in the fold alongside Brown, Embiid, and Maxey. The Sixers instantly became one of the most talked about rosters in the league. As one report framed the new outlook, adding James alongside Embiid and Maxey gives the Sixers a projected starting 5 that immediately positions them as one of the league's contenders. And Brown, specifically, is walking into this season with about as much momentum as any player in the league. He's coming off a career-best year. He actively recruited the greatest player of his generation to join him, and he's now positioned as a foundational piece of a franchise chasing a championship. As one outlet summarized, heading into the new campaign, Brown is coming off a career year and enters this new chapter with the spotlight brighter than it's ever been on him. So where does that leave the actual relationship between Brown and the James family? Quiet celebration from Brown, a buried grudge from LeBron, and a young player in Bronny who spent 2 years answering doubt with results. That's the picture as training camp approaches, and it sets up exactly what comes next for all 3 of them once the season actually tips off. So here's where things stand heading into this new Sixers era. Brown is in Philadelphia fully bought in, throwing up that 4-word rallying cry every chance he gets. LeBron is set to suit up in a city that isn't Los Angeles, or Cleveland, or Miami, for the first time in his career, joining a roster he helped hand-pick in a sense, given how hard Brown and the others recruited him. And Bronny is still in LA, still developing, still carrying the weight of being LeBron's son every single time he steps on a court. The comment that started all of this, that blunt read on Bronny's readiness back in 2024, never actually got walked back by Brown in any formal, dramatic way. He addressed it once, hours after it went viral, with that same-day message about family and growth. And when the moment came to address it again, 2 years later, with LeBron literally about to join his team, Brown didn't give a press conference or a heartfelt statement. He gave 4 words and a hashtag. For Brown, that seemed to be enough. For most of the basketball world watching, it landed as exactly the kind of closure the story needed. Not a grand apology, just a guy excited about his new teammate moving forward. LeBron's side of it tells a slightly different story, and it's the more human one. He didn't forget. He brought the comment up himself, unprompted, months before any trade rumors existed. He repeated, "We'll be all right" 3 times in a row. The kind of repetition that usually means someone's still working something out in real time, even as they say it's fine. He smiled through it. He acknowledged Brown's apology, and he still made sure the moment on record showed he remembered exactly what was said about his son. That's not lingering anger. That's a father keeping receipts while still being willing to move forward. And then there's Bronny, who's had the least to say publicly through any of this, and arguably the most riding on it. He was 19 years old, 5 games into professional basketball, when a superstar sitting courtside questioned whether he belonged. Since then, he's quietly rebuilt his entire profile, from a kid shooting 0 for 15 from 3 in Summer League to a young pro who reportedly outgrew the G League level in a matter of appearances. He never clapped back at Brown. He never addressed the clip publicly at all, based on everything available. He just kept playing. That's arguably the most fitting way this settles. Brown said what he said, apologized fast, then celebrated loud once the reunion actually happened. LeBron remembered everything but chose respect over resentment, praising Brown's game just as often as he referenced the old comment. And Bronny, the one actually being talked about the whole time, let his own progress speak instead of chasing a headline. Whether Brown and Bronny ever get their own direct moment, a real conversation, a photo together, some acknowledgement between just the two of them hasn't happened publicly yet. Maybe it never needs to. Maybe the quiet version of moving on. The version where an old clip stops being a story and just becomes a footnote in a bigger championship chase, is exactly how this was always going to end. For now, Philadelphia has its new core. LeBron has a fresh chapter in a city that's already declared its excitement in ways big and small. Brown has the teammate he fought to recruit standing right next to him. And Bronny keeps doing what he's been doing since that Summer League night in 2024, working, developing, and letting 2 more years of results answer a comment that took less than 5 seconds to say. The silence has been broken, not with an apology tour, not with a sit-down interview, just with a hashtag and a season about to start. Sometimes that's how these things actually end, not with a resolution everyone can point to, but with everybody simply choosing to move forward, together, ball already in the air. Jaylen Brown's old comments about Bronny James are about to make things very awkward with LeBron in Philly. LeBron James's blunt comment on Jaylen Brown resurfaces after 76ers move. Jaylen Brown's old comments about Bronny James are about to make things very awkward with LeBron in Philly. Yardbarker. LeBron James's relationship with Jaylen Brown questioned after Bronny comments resurface. Bronny trade to 76ers may get messy because of Jaylen Brown comments. LeBron James calls out Jaylen Brown's comments about son Bronny while addressing their relationship. Jaylen Brown addresses Bronny James' comments from Summer League video. NBA rumors: would Jaylen Brown's harsh Bronny comments stop LeBron James from joining 76ers? Jaylen Brown breaks silence after LeBron James signs with stacked 76ers during free agency. Jaylen Brown's instant LeBron reaction debunks any Bronny James tension. Jaylen Brown's diss towards Bronny resurfaces after LeBron James signs for 76ers. https://sports.yale.com articles Jaylen Brown diss towards Bronny 165,237,036.html.